Industries sells at 560 francs CFA. And the following support measures were adopted by government to secure consumers' purchasing power, which are that pump price for kerosene was maintained at 350 francs CFA. Cooking gas price was maintained at the current price, and then remuneration of state employees increased by 5.2%, and then guaranteed minimum wage was increased to 41,875 francs CFA. And then the communique ends that the proposal will be reviewed in collaboration with trade unions under the National Labour Advisory Board. This is the information that was made public yesterday, and Cameroonians have reacted differently from it, and we in this panel are going to be looking at it as experts in the domain of critically analyzing what government and other structures of our national life are doing. We are going to be discussing this with Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa, who is our consultant. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, my co-panelists. Good evening, Cameroonians, and welcome to this wonderful edition of Prime Hour. We are discussing the hike in prices of not just petrol, but other basic commodities that have been that have started manifesting since the beginning of this year, and we believe that it's time for us to address these issues and then call the government to look into it and then try to see how to reduce the pressure already upon the masses.
We also in the company of Prof. Mark Anthony, Panafricanist. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Leo. Good evening to my fellow panelists, and good evening to Cameroon and Africa. It is indeed another day of education. You see, our being here is actually for one purpose, not just to share our opinions, but to also educate our people on what is happening in the nation at the moment, considering that we have so many things that are actually distracting people from focusing on realities on the ground. The increase in prices of petrol and other issues, for example, if you remember, in January there was an increase in the what we call vignettes and visit technique. All those things actually are targeting car owners, and the question is, if the target is just the car owners, what about those paying transport? Okay. Where is the target? Is it just those who are car owners or those who are also paying transport?
Okay. The communique says that support measures were adopted to secure consumer purchasing power. So I'm sure the transporters, yes, they fall within that. We're going to see how this is going to favor them. But Dr. Michael Ndimancho is also here with us. Good evening. Doctor, we're glad to have you.
It's a pleasure, Mr. Leo, and Matisha. Regards and sympathy to the communication family. You're one of them, journalists. Length of the murder of Martinez Zogo, of course, it's a national issue. And we pray that the government should handle it with care and also handle other issues that have happened before, like the Wazizi case and all the rest. I think that they should come to bear. And my sympathy also goes to the family that lost people in a ghastly motor accident today between Douala Idea. About 9 people lost their lives. Of course, we begin to decry. A musician sang that it is not the root that kills, but we kill the root. So I think that we need to be very, very careful the way we go about our daily duties, coupled with the fact that we are already being squeezed by the hikes in prices. Thank you very much, Mr. Liu.
Okay, we are also going to be taking a listen to how Cameroonians have reacted to this fuel price increase across the nation through our respective representatives in other towns of Cameroon. Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa, could Cameroonians actually see this coming?
Yeah, Mr. Leo, I wasn't taken aback because I held another program in this same TV station with Lasha Kingsley about the hike in prices of basic commodities, and I pointed out clearly that in a very short while we're going to be receiving a hike in price in petroleum, because it's not something that the Cameroon government decides, it's something that was imposed on them. Cameroon government is not the one that has increased the prices of petrol and other basic commodities in the country. Cameroon government is under pressure from the International Monetary Fund. I went to their website earlier before now, and they were pressing the government to increase the price of basic commodities and increase the price of petrol specifically, because definitely when somebody borrows money to you and wants to recover the money, it will put you under pressure for you to do everything possible to gather that money and pay back. So it's focusing now on Cameroon government, talking about the ministers and the persons in question. It's not actually them. They are under some kind of pressure somewhere, so I'm not taken by surprise. I even thought the prices were to be higher than what I saw, because the International Monetary Fund was asking for a liter of petrol for 1,000 francs in Cameroon, but lucky enough we landed at 730, which is equally not still good for the consumers, because I'm sure they have reduced about 50% subsidies on fuel that used to help us buy the fuel cheaper, and that has affected a lot of people. The problem is the repercussion, the ripple effect of this increment in prices of basic commodities, and particularly fuel prices.
Yeah, Apostle, I want us to understand the pressure under which Cameroon found itself because of what's happening at the international level.
Yes, Mr. Leo, that has nothing to do with the international level. I think we are trying to use the war in Ukraine and Russia, war between Ukraine and Russia, to cover up. The debt we are owing has nothing to do with the Ukraine and Russia war. As a matter of fact, we were indebted earlier before the war started. We are old debtors. This nation is an old debtor to the international community. So the war in Ukraine should not be used as a cover-up. These debts are older than the war. For how long has Ukraine and Russia fought? They have not fought for long. It has not been up to 2 years. So these debts are older than 2 years. They cannot just suddenly borrow us money within 2 years and then come and begin to give us pressure. The debt must have stayed longer than
But
now.
are the justifications are valid that because of hikes at the international level of petroleum products, that is why we have to also increase in Cameroon?
Yes, the justifications are right, because in the first place, they are valid. They are valid because we don't know how to relate out. Because the issue is, Cameroon normally is supposed to be a country that's supposed to process its fuel. We initially had Sonara. Sonara was given the opportunity to process only 20% of its fuel, and then 80% was supposed to be sent to the international market as crude oil to be reprocessed there and then sent back to us. We buy at higher prices, which is automatically wrong, because we have the capacity to process our fuel at least 50%.
Now, let's understand something, Apostle. There is a price hike at the level of the international community,
yes,
which means that we are buying from the international community. Right, but we are also producing, right?
Are we supposed to buy? That's the question.
No. The problem is that even if we are buying, it means that the amounts we are using to buy has increased, but as a producing country, the amount we make from sales at the international level has also increased, because we are also selling at the international. Are we not producing crude?
We produce crude oil
and sell to the international community.
We don't sell to the international community.
We sell to?
We sell to a nation that sells in the market.
Okay.
The middleman monopoly is very much alive today.
Yeah. Are you saying that if there is a middleman who bought 2 years ago at 500 and there is hike at the international level market, he is still going to buy at 500?
He won't buy at 500.
So where is the extra profit going to? Now
listen very well. It's good we point out these things. Very important. First and foremost, the international law does not permit Cameroon to process up to 30 or 40% of its fuel. Now we process only 20%. The advantage would have been if at all we are the ones processing that fuel, we will sell at our own price. But now we are
not at the
international community. So we are now giving 80% in the international market. They process it. The price they sell to us is double the price we sell, even if price increases. Processed fuel is more expensive than crude oil. What we are selling is on a disadvantage. We are selling at even if they increase the price for 100 per barrel, we sell there. They will process and sell us a liter for 400. So you discover that even if the price increases, what we are buying back as processed fuel is what paralyzes even what we used to sell.
Yeah, but comparatively to other nations, why is it that they buy at a lesser price? Nigeria is also buying from...
Cameroon is not under OPEC. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Cameroon is not part of them. Nigeria is part of them. So Nigeria has the capacity to process fuel at a certain level. That's why their prices will never match up with us. Cameroon does not have that production of fuel that qualifies him to be a member of OPEC.
Yeah, but I don't know whether you've taken a look at the fuel pump prices in Congo. Is Congo a member of OPEC?
No.
Nope.
So why do they sell lesser than Cameroon?
Okay, I'll take another tangent in order to land on that question. You see, Apostle Ambe invoked the IMF stuff. We are not just looking at the fact that they want to pay debts. Rather, Cameroon has been on a negotiation for more debt, for more money. And on Monday, Semil Kosak, who is the Central African IMF representative, actually made an announcement that there is a staff level agreement that has been made with the Cameroon and the IMF, agreeing that by March, Cameroon should be receiving another disbursement of about 74.6 million US dollar. That is enough money that is going to come into Cameroon. So Cameroon, though they were resisting to increase the prices, if they have to receive that money, then they need to do it. So it is based on the money that Cameroon has been demanding that this more pressure came up. So at this particular moment, the question is the increase in prices here in Cameroon and Congo supposed to be compared? Maybe Congo is not going for what we are going in for. And so as long as Cameroon is not going the same direction with Congo, we will not compare the two of them. Each of these countries have what they want. And IMF has a way they think that if you have to take this money from them, they need to also put the pressure on you for you to show them that there will be a means to collect back this money.
Yeah, okay. These are instructions coming from the IMF, Dr. Michael Ndimancho. We have had IMF give instructions to Cameroon because the intention is to better the economy of Cameroon. We saw the structural, structural adjustment programs. We saw most of our companies were privatized. I'm told that if we are not too careful, many more are going to they're going to be privatized. And yes, we attend what was called HIPICA, Highly Indebted Poor Countries Initiative. Yes, and we are going in for another IMF-led move. I don't know, is it that we have learned our lessons from the past and that we are now going to take better measures to take maximum profit of these instructions from the IMF?
No, it is simply that we are in a mire, Mr. Leo. We are in a deep hole where escape is chimerical. The escape for us to come up from where we are. In fact, I even pity those who are even struggling to bring us out where we are now. Because it is a pity. The country has been years out. The country has been sold. I mean, we are on rentage. That is where the problem is. So I pity it. It was ineluctable. We could not escape this fact at this particular point in time. Cameroon had to actually cut the subsidy to Cameroon. I mean, it is not just about the IMF seems to be more. You notice the IMF is more concerned about the development of Cameroon more than us, the Cameroon, and even telling the Cameroon government that you should cut subsidy in order to invest in developmental projects. I mean, and if it is something that is good for us, it's good for us. The government wouldn't resist. And as you said, we attained the HIPIC completion point. And we thought that we are, at least, we are going to be free from some of these things, and no accountability has been given, and we are at this stage again. Look at the issue of Apostle Ambe was trying to explain to us about our crude oil I mean, that is actually not anything to compare with what we are buying as the processed oil. And it is clear. And let me tell you that it is intentional for some people to get this be the way it is. Yes. Now, let me tell you a simple example. Just simple timber that they said you should not sell unprocessed or unfinished, I mean, timber that is still is natural, wood that is in natural state. I mean, a law was passed on that. And then they kept on postponing. Why do you think they're postponing? It's because some people know exactly what they are reaping from there. You think that it is difficult for Cameroon to get into this OPEC? It is not difficult. It is just because some people have actually, I mean, they know why we keep on being where we are. You know, when you get to the Bretton Woods Institute, it is one of those things that people don't know. When you get to them and you think that is that kind of a savior that will save you from your problem, it is a lie. The Ambe is not coming with a kind of a salvific kind of a solution to give Cameroonians to come out from their problem. No way. I mean, the Ambe is here to protect its own interests. And to say that today, we are where we are today, and with the, I mean, if Cameroon continues to substitute or to subsidize the fuel that we are talking about today, then we are going to go much more deeper where we are today. And they brought us to where we are. This is what we should be blaming. We are not even blaming the IMF. The IMF is only, you let somebody, when you find that somebody has an insatiable desire for something, like a monkey. When you see a monkey that likes banana so much, yes, you let the monkey into an arrow, and then the monkey now gets to that banana, and then you get him into the cage. And once he gets to the cage, it is finished. And that is what Cameroon has gotten into, because we had people in Cameroon who don't like this country, who don't like the citizens, who don't like the development of this country, and now they keep on plunging Cameroon into this issue until we reach at the level where we are, and that we must borrow money. And let me tell you, even the amount of money we borrow, how much go for developmental projects in Cameroon? It's good to be able to look this thing all around. Yes. How much of this money go into developmental projects? Because people know exactly what percentage, what quarter they are going to reap from it when they borrow this money from the IMF. Since they started borrowing, I mean, we have had a lot of issues starting from the coronavirus and all that. I mean, has fragilized the economy. And we thought that people were able to maximize even the money that was meant to be able to salvage people from the healthcare system. I mean, during Corona was embezzled. And one more of money that is actually being borrowed when people are living, I mean, there is no major issue that is causing on health hazard. So I think that there are some people with a private agenda in this country who want to cause, when you hear that someone has embezzled a kind of amount of money that they call the figure, and then you begin to ask yourself, how did that money come about? It is because a whole cabal, you know, it's a whole cabal that people have decided to plunge Cameroon into in order that we keep on being wanting. And because we are wanting, the IMF has opened its door wide open and say, okay, you want to come in now. And once you come in, what happened? Now to go back to get out of the house, I mean of the room, is a very, very big and difficult problem. And that is where we are being faced in what we are being facing now.
Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to contribute something. You see, we are in this particular situation where today the IMF is saying that there's need for us to cut down in order to meet up in certain places. If you look at it, the importation of food is something that was not happening in Cameroon in the 80s because we were self-sufficient enough. But they came up and we see everything possible, where we see individuals being able to embezzle billions and keep in their houses, where we see, in fact, it is strange, we see a whole government in prison because of corruption. Not as if the money is not there, but because of mismanagement as well. So, Mr. Leo, if we look at this thing categorically, we'll realize that the problem is not actually a problem of, let's just use the word IMF, it's a problem of mismanagement of the resources of the nation. We have gangsters who have decided to make sure that they sip out all what is coming in. They are going in to borrow another money. Would that money be used in developing the nation? We know the answer to that question. No, because this money will be embezzled before it even arrives into the account of, in fact, it targets any project. And so we have a serious problem of mismanagement, a government that actually does not have the patriotic spirit to develop the nation itself. The beginning of this year, the president actually at the end of year speech said we should join him. He called on Cameroonians to join him fight corruption. It becomes the responsibility of every Cameroonian to make sure that if they are going to borrow money, which we are the ones suffering and supposed to pay, there is need for every Cameroonian to become a should I say a CONAC member right now?
Okay.
Because
CONAC member.
Yes, we should fight corruption, all of us.
What are the motivations for this price increase? You say the IMF is mounting pressure on Cameroon. What are the guarantees that this is going to succeed away from the failures we have observed in the past initiatives?
Mr. Leo, the IMF has never and ever for once helped any country in the world. I stand to be corrected. This IMF came up in 1944 after the Great Depression. In 1944 after the Great Depression, in 1930, in the 30s. There was a Great Depression of 1929 to 1937. 1937 to 1938, there was a recession. Around the 40s, now 1944, they came up with IMF. This IMF came to solve an American and a European problem. And if you look at it, since IMF came, we have not had that kind of depression that occurred in the 1929s. They used it as a means of, it came with the idea of like generating income to support countries in the world. But that was not the purpose. Instead, it came as a means of generating income by making profit. Because IMF does not give you money for free. IMF gives money for loan. And because they loan you money, they pay with interest. So you realize that Europe and America have not gotten the depression of 1929 that they got since many years ago. So IMF came to sustain them, not to enter into the shock they experienced many years ago. So Africa has become now the unfortunate continent. When these IMF experts are sent into the world to go and look for countries that will take loans, when they go to Asia, they have a very bad day. When they go to Middle East, they have a very bad day. When they come to Africa, we are even begging to collect this loan from their table. That's the reason why an IMF official was interviewed once. That where does he face difficulties in getting loan, in getting people who take loans? He said Asia and Middle East, he finds it very difficult. That's why you see the emerging nations in the world right now come from Asia, from South Korea rising, India rising, Indonesia, Malaysia, because they have refused this loan. Africa has been caught in the web because Africa is the one that even goes about begging for these loans. You and I were in Cameroon once when money was given in this nation by IMF for the COVID stuff. That money was embezzled and some people were sent here to investigate Cameroon. After some few days, they loaned Cameroon another money again. How can I borrow you money? You mismanage that money. I sent people to come and investigate you. Then you people investigating you within a few days, I'm still loaning you money. Only a dead man or a blind man or somebody who has seen more interest in loaning money will borrow you money, you mismanage it, and still come to borrow you again. If IMF was actually out to help African countries, then the IMF would not have been borrowing money to African countries, because knowing fully well that it had been very difficult for them to pay back those money. You and I know how many times I've canceled loans in countries in Africa. That is a strategy. China did not form any bank. China came as a nation in the capacity of IMF, using the same strategy, because why? There are no more resources for them to extract. Most of the European countries have signed pacts that give them right over the cocoa, the bauxite, the oil. You don't see Chinese company extracting oil here. In Cameroon, we have Perenco, we have Friedlander, we have Total, we have Gazprom, which is a Russian company, we have Look Oil, a Russian company, we have New Age, which is a British company. They are yet to extract oil. So when China came, China could not have access to sign any deal on oil anymore. China had to engage into loans, because the Chinese know very well that loan is the only way that can make me turn you into a modern day slave. So if the privatization they engage, that's what they used to trap Yoweri Museveni when he came to power in 1987. Museveni came to power and then they said structural adjustment program, millennium goals, and then he sold 6 of the Ugandan airline planes and privatized of the companies in Uganda. Even the commercial bank of Uganda, he privatized it. Museveni realized that what he was doing was not benefiting his people. Now this time around, oil has been discovered in Uganda, and they are asking Museveni that he will extract that oil. Museveni said over his dead body, they will do everything possible to build a refinery in Uganda in order to process the oil there, because all their structural adjustment program, millennium goals, privatization was a scam. that they used to manipulate African countries. Most of the African country presidents that fell to that trap are facing the repercussions today.
Yeah, but
there is no future. What you have asked me is what I'm answering.
Yes.
There is no future of what they are coming up right now to do. That they are coming to help to better the economy. They are not bettering any Cameroonian economy. Ask them that why since the IMF came, they have not experienced Great Depression again like in 1929. The shock of their Great Depression was what forced on us here. Yes, that's the truth. Do you know that this new note that was created like this is because the euro was devalued? They have never devalued euro, but the euro is devalued. Euro fall under the dollar zone, Then CFA and the rest now fall under euro zone. When they devalue euro, it throws the weight on African countries. That's the reason why the note physically is small. If you take 100,000 in old money and 100,000 in new money, you put on a kilo, you discover that the quantity of paper that was used to do the old money is heavier than this new one. That's devaluation. Number two, that money in those days, you could buy a fiscal stamp for 1,000 francs, but you are using 1,000 francs for the new one to buy the same fiscal stamp. It means the money has lost its value. So when euro is devalued, the weight is thrown on CFA.
Okay, the weight is thrown.
My anger is this, and I learn.
Okay.
We are sending politicians to go and handle economic matters. This is where the trouble is. When they were to change the zones or the currency of the West Africa, most of the African countries that were there, Gambia, Nigeria, Liberia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, they sent their central bank governors and their finance ministers to go and bargain for the euro, for the ECO. When they went to negotiate the ECO, the conditions that France brought to negotiate on the ECO, they refused because why? They understood money operation. We are sending politicians to handle economic matters in this country. That's where our trouble is.
That is where the trouble is. But what is particular with the sector of car owners in Cameroon? I'm talking about automobile. We know that roadworthy certificate is increased. We also note that even importing a car in Cameroon is also pretty expensive, and now we are witnessing this. Who is supposed to bear this? Because transporters are using fuel, they are using the vignette, they are using the visit technique. Are they not also going to transfer this burden on those that are going to?
Mr. Leo, you see, that's where the irony is. We are made to understand that the target are the car owners, but they fail to understand that transporters who will bear this same brunt that was supposed to be thrown on car owners would indirectly transfer it to pedestrians, as well as the common man down there who is finding it particularly difficult to even cope based on the price hikes of everything around our society today. When they go sit in their various, meetings and claim that if somebody owns a car, it means the person is rich or maybe is able to take care of himself, then they say, okay, let's put the taxes on these people. Trying to put the taxes on them, there's this this African proverb that says that since birds have learned how not to perch, hunters have learned to shoot without missing. So it becomes very, very normal that if you push the taxes on the car owners and on transporters, because we can't claim that also it's only on car owners and on transporters, then the transporters will cause the citizens to suffer. And the more the stress, I am sure it will come back on the government. Because as we are talking right now, if you follow, I was listening to one of the union presidents of one of the taxi unions, and he was saying that since this thing is coming upon them, they have made up their mind. They are also going to make sure they allow the stuff. That mindset is like trying to say, if the government does not do something, they are going to react. And we remember what happened in 2008 when transporters reacted. It had a heavy toll on the economy. Not only on the economy, but in fact, a lot of things happened that year. So I believe, Mr. Leo, that even though the government thinks that their target is car owners, they are making a mistake. They are targeting all Cameroonians. Every Cameroonian is practically touched, because if I have to move from my house to the office, if I don't own a car, I need to pay a taxi to arrive where I'm going. And if the taxi is taking petrol, the taxi is paying vignette, the taxi goes to for checks, so for roadworthy certificates. It means that they also needs to pass the thing to the person who is going to give them the money. And who is that individual? It is the person, the passengers. And these passengers, who are they?
Yeah.
The citizens.
Yeah, but normally, if we have fuel price increase, doctor, we understand that if transport fares were to be increased, it's going to touch on practically every aspect, because it means that even bringing food to our cities, it's going to, and almost everything is going to. But where are our consumer trade unions? Because the text actually says that the proposal will be reviewed in collaboration with trade unions under National Labour Advisory Board.
If we saw when that communique was read on CRTV, there was another communique that came. That was a confidential document where they said there was a meeting with the trade unionists, and the government came to that meeting with an agenda to tell them straight away that this is what is going to happen. And it either through intimidation or whatsoever, or through Frenchman called moneyage, the trade unionists, they kept quiet. They said, okay, we are going to leave it pass, and then we are going to look at it after. And usually this is what they say. It is no news to any Cameroonian that the trade unions in Cameroon are fighting for their stomach. You know, just like Jean-Francois Bayard would say, la politique du ventre. Because most of these people, I have not seen anybody come up publicly to say, no, we actually put forth an argument against the government, and the government actually insisted on its own point. Nobody is saying anything. Then you already know that these very people you call the trade unionists, actually they are fighting for themselves. Now, secondly, I think we are at a very, very difficult situation now, as I said. Cameroon is facing turbulence at all angles, and they need money. Whether they have the money in which way, they need it. And because they want to have it at all costs, a lot of untold troubles and misfortunes are also following. According to me, the IMF will have been able to force Cameroon to get those people who have embezzled, who are in prison, to, bring just part of the money that they have embezzled. If the IMF really loves Cameroon, I really want to come on this point. If the IMF really loves Cameroon, I think that one of the things would have been for them to put government on the hot seat so that they don't just put people in prison. Yesterday, I learned another shady, kind of pronouncement. Giving somebody 30 years in prison, and the person owes 23 billion. It was first of all 20-something billion. Now it came down to 23 billion. And even the 23 billion, it is nowhere to be found. Now they are putting somebody in prison for 30 years. Okay, to sit there and then eat the money, finish the money, comfortably. I think that the IMF is, if really they love Cameroon, and that is why I think that they are not playing on the side of the proletariat, as we will call them. They are protecting the bourgeoisie, and the bourgeoisie in Cameroon are very few. The government ministers, the directors, and all of those people who are up there, they are not supposed to be protected by them. Because even when they talk about the price hikes, who is it affecting? We have minister in Cameroon, Akuhmbom de Cameroon. We have Director General Akuhmbom de Cameroon. We have these who are working on the government payroll, and fuel is from the government. I was looking at what the President of the National Assembly has and what the President of the Senate has as even fuel allowance. You could take care of my village for 1 month. Fuel allowance I mean, for 1 week, could take care of my whole of my village for 1 month. And then you ask yourself, what is happening? And that is why we really need to put people here who can talk and who are able. Now, Mr. Leo, I wanted to come back to the E-lock that I was talking about following Cameroon. We have had structures in Cameroon that, I mean, we have used double or triple the amount of money that was allocated for those structures. Look at the Onlebe Stadium, where nobody is talking about it, but a lot of money is getting to it. And now, the bad luck that is following us is that even the CAF has refused that the qualifying match for the African Cup will not be played at Olembe Stadium. What a shame! What a disgrace to us! And a stadium that we have spent a lot of money and it was the talk of the country, how it is a high standard. Now we have gotten the disgrace. And that is how when you do like that, these misfortunes keep on following us each day of our life. And I think that we need to change. We need to have people who speak for the people, not people who are fighting for their stomach. Because when we find people fighting for this post, people who say they are consumers, representative and whatsoever, who cannot stand and defend, I mean, a single franc that has been added to, I mean, to the untold sufferings of the people, I think that there is much to be revised. And Charles Ateba Ayene, may he so rest in peace, actually talked about all of us, and we need to examine our consciences.
Now, the IMF and Cameroon, we had money for COVID, and the IMF instructed that investigations be made, and today IMF is saying that, okay, you need to engage this for us to give you more money. Even previously, have the monies been well managed or spent that IMF would be convinced to wanting to give us more?
If this IMF thing is not Machiavellic in its approach, from the way they borrow money to nations, it shows that they want to keep you in captivity. Because I don't think that under normal circumstances, I will borrow you money, you do not pay, and I'm still adding more debt to an already accumulated.
Yeah, but even if I did not pay, and you don't you investigate how the money was used?
That's what I'm talking about. You borrow money to a nation, the money was not used properly for the purpose. As a matter of fact, I'm borrowing money from nation, we're borrowing this money to use it on this thing, and the money was not spent rightly on it. It's gotten to the level on people's health. As a matter of fact, they can steal money for buildings, they can steal money for roads, they can steal money for land. But when they start stealing money that was sent to take care of the health of individuals in the country, it tells you that those individuals who stole those money had no conscience. Now, International Monetary Fund comes up after borrowing that money, sent an investigative team to come and check how the money was spent. We had no headway, only for them to come and add more debts to already accumulated debt in the country. That tells you that they have an agenda. They have an agenda, and it will shock you that the purpose of the IMF, founded in 1944 by 44 different nations, which are the original member states, they said, number one, it is to help sustain economies and to help their 190 member nations to prosper. That's the purpose of the IMF. Wow, they were supposed to set economic policies that will give financial stability. I want to ask the economic policies that the IMF has established since they came into existence in 1944 that has helped prosper member states. There are 190 nations under IMF right now. Tell me the nations that have prospered under IMF, because they said they were to come up with economic policies that will give financial stability. None of these countries that are under IMF have money. They have been indebted and indebted and indebted, and they're adding debt upon debt upon debt upon debt. Cameroon, if a nation does not have control over its own resources, it is somebody who tells you when to increase the price of basic commodities. It means that we are living in a rented nation. In a rented nation. Because if it is the International Monetary Fund that is telling us when to increase price of fuel in this country, it means we do not even own what belongs to us. That's how critical it is. So, boycotting some of these international bodies, to me, like what Mali and the rest they are doing, is going to help. It may affect them temporarily, but they're going to be stable tomorrow and grow faster. Because I think the IMF has not been of any help to the Cameroonian government or to most of the African countries. They only come here and pour debt upon us. Look, if you know, if you're a Cameroonian who studies very well, you understand that the increment of fuel prices is not the wish of the Cameroon government. It's not their wish. They were only coaxed or pressed to do this. They were not willing, because government have been subsidizing fuel in this country. It's important we sensitize Cameroonians to understand the role of the government and how the government is caught in between the axe and the anvil. It is important for us to make people understand that our government, their hands are tight where they are. Some policies are not enacted because they really wish to enact the policies. Sometimes they are under pressure. And that's the reason why they came up with this minimum wage increase of 5,000 francs and the increment of fuel price 31%. Look at the gap. Increment of fuel price 31%, minimum wage increment 5%. Who are they deceiving? That thing is just to convince people who have not gone to school. You are giving me a load of 400 kilograms and you are reducing 5. To do what with it? It's delicate.
Okay.
Very delicate.
It's delicate, but why we are blaming the IMF itself? Shouldn't we blame ourselves for getting this money? Because borrowing or taking a loan is not a bad thing, but it is the investment that you make of it. Shouldn't we blame ourselves? Should we not blame our economists?
Mr. Leo, that's where I came in. I said,
because the economists themselves are supposed to give this advice now that you are giving. Yeah.
The thing is, in this nation, who are those who are actually running and putting policies? Politicians can actually develop economic policies. And once politicians sit and start deciding on economic policies, that country is bound to go the wrong way. We are having a nation where those who run the nation, if you want to check very well, the minister of finance will not be somebody who is having an expertise in finance. You want to look very well, the minister of economic will be somebody who might be did geography or philosophy and is being appointed to be a minister of economic. So at the end of the day, we have a problem with management, Mr. Leo.
Yeah, but they have experts in the ministry.
There will always be experts, but the question is, since we live in a country where we always receive high instruction before we act, the question is, how then will you expect that these individuals who have their expertise and contribute their expertise their expertise will not be used, because the minister in question will be waiting for high instructions from the president, implying that they were brought in not to work. It's funny how most ministers wait and wait, always that the president should give them high instruction before they can do something. They are supposed to be, I'm sure they are appointed to make sure they contribute and see how the president can arrive his vision. And if they are brought in to work, join the president to make sure that he fulfills his vision as the president of the country, then they come and they fold their arms and sit and they are waiting for high instruction. There's a problem. So if you ask who we should blame, I want to say blaming IMF is like saying that you take your hand and put in fire, then you are blaming the fire. No, I blame me who took my hand and placed in fire.
IMF is out to make its profit.
IMF is out to make money. They are coming for money. So if you blame them, it means that you are not seeing that they are a business group of people. Okay, Mr. Leo, we go back. I mentioned earlier that in the 1980s, Cameroon was practically doing very well. Doing very, very well. And we were developing, we got to a place where we established industries that were processing food. Right now, one of the greatest areas in which we have problems is importation of food. We import food into Cameroon, and that is where taxes are high. There are very high taxes placed on those same food that is imported into the nation. While we have a vast land capacity that we can be able to transform it into an industry, an agricultural industry. We have a youthful population of less than 19 average age. We have a vast land. This land could be transformed into farms, and when these lands are transformed into farms, we look for ways. What the government should be doing is, instead importing machines to establish a kind of processing industries where we can process our food here instead of importing food. We have the land. We are talking of we sit here and we are talking of maybe it is because of the war in Ukraine that there's price hikes based on the war. No, I think in Cameroon we can produce wheat. I will go back to tell you, when I was growing with my grandmother back in 1980s as a child schooling, she had a very vast wheat farm, Mr. Leo.
Yeah, but this issue of wheat, sincerely speaking, is this not also a distraction? Because
Mr. Leo, let me just land there.
We have not made good use of the maize, the potentials to maximize maize, plantain, and a host of others. Now we want to go.
Mr. Leo, I'm not just talking wheat. There is rice production. There is everything.
So why are we not taking full advantage?
The problem is we do not have the processing mechanism to transform these things into finished products, because our government focuses on killing the basic products that we are making by importing.
Brazzaville need maize. Why not?
Brazzaville might need maize, and yes, we produce the maize for them to get. But the question is, do they always accept every maize that comes to them? No, they have where they want to get it from. And so, Mr. Leo, we should not be blind. We should not be blind. If we can supply them with the necessary maize they need, but they have their places where they need it from. They import it. And so we will not change that. They import it. And worst of it, we do not even need beer, Mr. Leo, in Cameroon at the moment. We need food. So that should be the target of the Cameroon government. So if we have to be sincere with ourselves, we will not be blaming IMF. We should be blaming the government of Cameroon.
Okay, we should not be blaming IMF, but the government of Cameroon. Dr. Michael Ndimancho, we borrow, and then most of it is being embezzled. We go for borrowing again, and then some persons are embezzling, and we still borrow. He says we should not blame IMF to some extent, and that is what some persons who are watching are also saying. But how do we borrow and invest wisely? That is what our credit unions are telling us now. How do we get the lessons from the credit union so that when you borrow, you invest wisely?
Yeah, let me come to the issue of blame on IMF. I think that IMF has a mission in the world. As far as economy is concerned. Okay. If somebody says we shouldn't blame the IMF, it means that actually we are escaping from the real, because the real issue comes from there. Now, I would like to say the IMF, just like the World Bank, they pretend to be helping economically, but they are capitalists. They are out to make profit. And that is one thing that we have to understand. They are out to make profit, because if they have to be able to go by their principles, then they are supposed to make sure that the countries that borrow are better off. I want to put this example. The IMF, like the UNO, it's just like the IMF, we have said here on the panel that there is no country that the IMF has helped to grow economically, because every country is complaining about the IMF. The IMF is suffocating every country. And secondly, it's just like the UN. Have we ever heard the UN stop any war anywhere in Africa? The UN, anywhere where the UN is, it is rather that time that war starts. I mean, the UN has not stopped any war in Africa. So you find that most of these international institutions are not out to help. And we were supposed to have understood this very well. It is because we have had people who do not love our country. Now, you see, I want to say the IMF has an agenda. And the agenda is to destabilize the African countries. I must say this very clearly. Because you don't imagine that they see a country like Cameroon that is already at the verge of collapse, especially with the war that is going on in Cameroon, and the government is barely suffocating, and the IMF comes again with this kind of a measure. It means that the end agenda for the IMF is to enable the citizens to rise up against the government. The issue that the government has given a 5.2% raise on the salary, which is very menial, and the issue that the government has actually increased the minimum wage to 41,000 francs is a defensive measure. Yes. Let me tell you, it's very, very defensive. The government didn't want to do it, but they felt that they should do something to defend themselves, as they are afraid of what the citizens are going to do. Let me tell you, I watched the state broadcaster yesterday when this was being read, and for the very first time, the background photo image of the state broadcaster was that monument, or is an art thing, I love my country. That speaks very much psychologically. That when you, in the midst of all these difficulties, we are supposed to put our country first. And that is why I'm saying that the government is at the defensive level because it was not their wish, even rest of what they even did. So they are at a point where they are collapsing. And I want to say that, no, you know, in a country where the IMF comes and tells a government to privatize institution and even privatize water companies, electricity company, this is something that, these are basic communities. These are things that the government is even supposed to offer for free to the citizens. Water, electricity, I mean basic necessity. But the IMF comes and dictates to the government, privatize this thing so that you can be able to manage it well. So that, and look at what is happening in Cameroon today. The electricity is epileptic. Water, we have heard in recent times what is happening in the issue of water in Cameroon. What is the IMF doing? The IMF has an agenda that is only to satisfy, I mean, those who are there, and then the few politicians, as we have said on the panel, that they are the politicians who go to manage this thing or to negotiate this thing. Okay. So I think you have to give the example of the credit unions. And I think the credit unions are community things. And that is why when we came about the issue of regionalization, we were very happy because it was something that was going to go to the community, and then you see the needs of the community and you are able to satisfy that need of the community. The credit unions work with the communities and they see the immediate needs of the communities, and the communities, they are very available. They are accessible to the community, and the community to come to them, and they are able to talk out things, and we're able to, they're able to satisfy the community needs.
Okay, let's take the reaction of the population of Kumba to this announcement of price increase in fuel.
Hello there, viewers of My Media Prime Television, viewers of Prime Hour. You are welcome to Kumba Meme Division. Many people have been expressing a lot of worries as far as the prices of petroleum products are concerned. Just when they got that announcement that the prices have actually changed, there is an increment in the prices of petroleum products. Many have stated that this is going to affect them, especially their businesses. This is going to affect transportation because they know that transporters will also increase the transport fare, and as well as those who are to transport farm produce from the various farms here in Meme Division.
The increase of fuel prices in Cameroon is really a call for concern. I want to believe Cameroon doesn't even have fuel because we have been using but Nigerian petrol. So all along, you go even to the streets of Kumba, you find fungi all over the whole town. Then you go to Douala, you go to Bamenda, you go to other places in Cameroon, you see but Nigerian petrol. So the government increasing the price of fuel is really something that can really bring economic disorder. Because I don't think that we don't have petrol, we cannot even supply our citizens with petrol, now we are increasing the price of petrol. So I believe that move by the government need to be rekindled and looked into, because it's really something that can cause havoc. So to me, the decision by the government to increase the price is not a good one, because prices of everything will drastically increase. I want to believe when you are paying transport now, a place that you used to pay 1,000, you have to pay now but 2,000 or 3,000 francs, because the price of fuel has increased. The drivers too have to increase their own price.
No, I feel very sad because at first it been 500 francs for petrol, but now it don't go up to 700 francs. Most of our customers they complain due to how the price don't add. So I don't really get much for talk. I say I be very sad how the price will increase.
That first and foremost, it made me got angry because one, there can be increasing prices of things whereby the economic is not irritating. That means it is not rotating. And it's making me to be very angry because the petroleum is something that boosts the economic of the country or nations even. Now they are increasing the price whereby there's no money, and what do they want the citizens to do? To be suffering or what? Because citizens are, in fact, from that means from henceforth, for somebody to travel to go to somewhere like Boya, the person will pay like something like 3,000 upward. So it is us, the citizens, that are suffering. We are suffering. In fact, they should just better cut down the thing before people. That means our children will just come and kill themselves concerning this issue, because they will be the one to be suffering a lot. If us we are suffering now, then what about our children? That means our children won't be able to even afford a car because of petroleum stuff.
It is another method of, ruining the lives of Cameroonians. Because the bottom line in all this is that the common man will suffer, because the increase in petroleum products will go a long way to increase prices in basic commodities, be it at the level of farm products, be it at basic commodities in the market, transport from one town to the other. Mr. Tamfu, I think it is another pain that is being, introduced to the impoverished Cameroonians who have been finding it hard to meet or to put food on the table. So I think the increase in prices is just another way to make Cameroonians become poorer. Yet they call our country MPE très endetté. So I don't know what the system in place really wants Cameroonians to do. From bad to worse. That's the way I look at it. So it is better for the Cameroonian government to think twice and avoid the issue of 2008, where people came out because of hunger, and then they carried out a strike and many people were killed.
And many people think that this will disturb, especially at a time when we don't even have a good farm to market route. So the prices will skyrocket as far as this is concerned. And some equally say that it's going to affect other commodities in the country because of people who buy and they sell to consumers here in Meme Division.
The increase in petroleum products would increase every other thing. I know we used to pay from my house, I used to pay 150 francs to go to the market. Now I know I will be paying by 250 francs because they will not increase by 50, they will increase by 100. Every other thing in the market has already increased.
No, you work with me because as they increase the price, so we make an work. The car passenger they complain, say they pay 100 this time we never pay 100. So the increase of the petrol, it disturb plenty. So we really beg and say we try to reduce the price back so that at least it will be more for we and the passenger that will carry.
I think the best way is for the government to do everything possible to encourage Cameroonians to produce what they will consume and to consume what they will produce. The essence of importing rice, importing wheat, and so on and so forth is not favorable to the common man. And besides, we're asking me questions. Why is it that up to today, Sonara, which used to be the main producer of petrol in our country, is in shambles? Why is the government finding it difficult to restructure Sonara or to rehabilitate Sonara such that our products, come to think of it, that petrol that is stolen or that is smuggled from Nigeria to Cameroon is sold cheaper than what is produced in our country? In fact, it is a question that many people have been asking, and they were appealing to the government to do everything possible for us to enjoy the natural and human resources that God has given this country.
I'm very, very, very unhappy. I'm very sad. Money is not increasing, but the taxes are increasing. We are paying high for everything. So I'm very sad.
So many people have expressed it, and some are saying that the people of Kumba, as well as the entire population of Meme Division and Southwest region, have suffered for 6 years due to the armed conflict in the Northwest and the Southwest regions of the country. And with this coming up again, it shows that there is going to be a very big economic crisis in this part of the country. So they are actually still hoping that maybe the government will have a redress to this particular decision. If not, then the days ahead may be very difficult for the population of Meme Division.
You just listened there from the people of Meme Division, Kumba. Precisely, they still think and dream that it's possible for the government to do something, but their plight is actually very difficult, especially after going through what they have gone through for the past 6 years.
Yes, Mr. Leo. Nobody will expect anything lesser than what those people are trying to share there, because the country has been first and foremost on its knees for the past 6 years due to the armed conflict. I'm wondering how those from Bamenda, from Kumbo, from Etam, from Ekondo Titi, Kumba, how would they feel? Because the means of livelihood is first of all very difficult. And then with the increment of price of basic commodities and transportation equally, it's going to make matters worse. I think to across the Mongo this way, we may feel the pinch because of the increment of price of basic commodities, but that is not the case over there, because people can barely feed themselves there irrespective of the fact that there was no increment in prices. The condition over there has been very, very bad. People have lost individuals, lost properties, others have lost their business. Predominantly in the southwest and the northwest, it is agriculture, because we don't have industries there. Agriculture, that is predominantly their source of livelihood. And then considering the fact that because of the armed conflict, most of the farms were occupied by either the military or the separatists, people have not had the chance to go to their farms. Cocoa has gotten rotten in farms. Other plantain produce have been destroyed. Cash and food crops have been destroyed in the farms. You discover that even a means of eating what they cultivate has been very difficult. Then coming again with the increment in prices of basic commodities and this fuel stuff is hell. I don't think the impact of what is happening right now will be the same in this other side of the Mongo as compared to those who have been going through the armed conflict within this period. It's very, very sad.
But the question now I want to ask you is like what one of them said there, that for a very long time they've been using imported petrol
from Nigeria. Mm-hmm.
Is this not further going to push people towards the consumption of?
Well, for your information, they have also made things very difficult for the fuel from Nigeria to come in. That's the reason why it has increased from 300 to 500.
Okay.
It has increased from 300 to 500 because definitely they are going to be frustrating. We're coming from somewhere yesterday. A friend of mine bought 10 liters of what they call funge in quotes for 6,000. So a liter of that fuel is 600 francs now.
We used to buy for 500.
300, 350 used to be the price, but now it is 600 per liter. Now the gap between the fuel at the station and that there is 130 francs. So you discover that they are frustrating. There's a lot of security in the sea that brings that fuel into Cameroon that have blocked the high sea, so making it very difficult. So there is practically no way we can use the fuel from Nigeria to solve the problem here, because it's not even easy in Nigeria, because equally the price of fuel in Nigeria has increased. Mm-hmm. It used to be 145. I just came from Abuja recently. It used to be 145 naira per liter of fuel. Now it is 350 per liter of fuel in Nigeria.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Thank you for all that you do to build this nation. This is Mbuai Vodang Akabongola. Permit me find out from you how much has been increased for a worker who before now was earning 38,000 francs. I tell you, my dear brother, increasing salaries by 5.2% is insignificant compared to the prices of basic necessities that have reached the heavens. I do not just want to mention that of petroleum products. Maintaining the prices of cooking gas and kerosene with 25 kilograms of salt selling at 5,000 francs in Isu, where I am based, is a slap to the face of the common man. Okay, Bongola, good evening to you. Mr. Liu, cooking gas presently in Bamenda is sold at 8,500 francs, whereas in other towns it is sold at 6,500 francs. Just imagine what is going to happen now, okay? That is too bad. I don't know whether the Ministry of the Ministry that is supposed to control that is aware and is taking appropriate measures to get that fixed. Good evening, Mr. Liu and panel. We regret the increase in fuel price, but checkpoints should be removed by Ngwa Richard in Bamenda. Good evening to you all in the studio. Does the percentage increase on basic salaries reflect the cost of living through high taxes? I see as if it's not directly proportional. It's needless increasing the basic salaries if it can't compensate for one's fuel for the month, etc. Moel Luis is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Leo. This is Mr. Vince from Boya Town. We are in this mess because of the greed and selfishness of some of our so-called leaders. Cameroon is always borrowing and never able to pay back, and the same lenders who claim to have our interests at heart are there to milk us dry. Why don't we hear countries like Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa, etc. borrowing left, right, center, or even they do? It's for the development of their nations, which is so evident to all its citizens, and they eventually pay back because the development improve the economies of the nations, okay? Good evening, Mr. Liu and the entire crew. We are always borrowing money every day. When are we going to pay back this money they want to borrow? Where is it going? Local farmers are there helping hand, okay? There are little or no roads to ease transportation to produce to the market. We need food to feed the body God gave us. Good evening, Mr. Liu and your intelligent panelists. Please can Apostle Ambe help me explain how the new banknote, its size reduction is as a result of European devaluation. Zephaniah writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you all. Erase the Senate, erase the fuel packages to ministers, retrieve money from embezzlers, stop blaming the IMF, blame yourself. They are there for business and know that when you can't pay your debts, you become the slave of the lender, okay? Mr. Leo, good evening to you people in the studio. Mr. Leo, please, you people should help us. As we speak, we have 229 francs for 239 francs, respectively, for gas and petrol instead of 220 and 230. Something is wrong somewhere. I'm just from Total and gas just got finished. It's writing from Bamenda. Something may not be right there, please. Good evening, Mr. Liu. This is Mr. Vince, okay? Good evening, Mr. Liu, and your panel. To me, the summary of it all, why the price high in fuel is the war in the Northwest and Southwest. The military and some individuals are feeding fat while the rest of the citizens are dying, sponsoring the war indirectly. Please, government negotiate, okay? Good evening, Mr. Liu and all your panelists. The effect of the increase in fuel prices fall on the common man. Today in Boya, I entered a taxi from Bonduma to Great Support and the driver deducted 250 francs out of 500 francs I gave. And when I tried to complain, he told me that price of fuel has increased. Alfred Tamufo. Yes, that's the normal price, but they usually pay less. That is why he's surprised. But now, should government or the IMF also, I want all of us to look at this. The IMF wants to help us. They say, okay, stop fuel subsidies. Why are they not looking at expenditures at the level of the ministries, the fuel bonds, and all of these things? That is telling the government to downsize its expenditure.
Mr. Leo, you know, if we have to look towards the IMF, saying that it will be like we are trying to say a businessman who comes and wants money should tell you the strategies on how not to give him money. So I think we have to actually look into this issue and tell our government, look at the prices, in fact, the different bonuses that are handed over to different ministers, fuel bonds, and all this. I think even the mission fees that they give to some of these guys, I think that those are some of the things that they need to look into. They should cut those things down and be able to see into it that Cameroonians live a proper life in their own country. We can't be living in our own country as if we are strangers. In fact, as if we are visitors. We think that this thing, like one of the messenger, the person who sent a message actually said, this decision to increase prices of petrol is actually targeting the layman down there in the street, not even the car owners as per se, because when we look at it, we are going to see issues where to transport food from some villages, which was supposed to be done easily before, will be difficult right now. And once that food is transported at a high price, it is very normal that the person who bought the food is also going to increase the price to sell. And that, I think the Cameroon government actually calculated very well and saw into it that instead of saying that let's increase the price of maybe a cup of rice, we should not do that. We should just increase the price of transporting that rice. Because once the rice is transported, the price automatically increases. So I think that is where they came in. Those are the things that will bring more pain to this nation. Why individuals are sitting in offices doing nothing, but they are being paid heavy money. In fact, they give them mission fees, which they do not even go for those missions. They give them fuel bonds, which they never use. Mr. Lee will be shocked to hear that some individuals burn fuel bonds every month because they are unable to use it. Just imagine somebody is giving a fuel bond for 5 million francs per month. How will he be able to use it? What is he doing with? How is he transporting himself? For what? To go to where with 5 million? And so I think some of those things should be cut down. And the extra money that is put into these things should be used, and the money that it will be gotten should be used in trying to see how they can help the people, the population. But if we have to punish the masses out there and then give comfort to those who are actually mismanaging the wealth of the nation, then it means that we do not have the nation at heart. So the patriotic spirit that used to be in this particular nation has disappeared. We do not have individuals who are thinking straight anymore towards the good of this nation. If individuals sit in their big office under their ACs, and then they decide that, okay, those who are working on food should bear the burn, then it means that we have decided to destroy the nation. So, Mr. Leo, I will come back to say that if anything goes wrong, there is just one person. In fact, there's just the government that I am targeting. I'm not looking at IMF, because I believe that IMF is a business organization that was set for the purpose of doing business, in fact, to crumble Africa. But if we have wise leaders who are able to think out of this their box that they have created called IMF, then we'll make a difference. Look at what is happening in Indonesia. Indonesia will not take anything like credit or loans from IMF in order to empower its nation. They know how to develop their things. Go to Singapore. Singapore will not take anything like loans from IMF. When you start asking why are these Asiatic nations running away from these loans, why African nations are embracing it more and more, that's to tell you leadership is a problem. We have a problem with the leadership in our continent, and particularly in Cameroon at the moment, because, Mr. Leo, the prices that we are talking about have been increased. Were not only increased in Cameroon, they were increased in almost all African nations.
Let's take the reaction of the people of Ngwa when they got information that they were now going to pay higher prices at the fuel pump for their cars and motorbikes.
Bienvenue dans la région de la Damawa. Nous sommes ici à Ngwa. Le prix de l'essence à la pompe, comme annoncé par le gouvernement, a bel et bien changé ici. Dans les différentes stations-service, nous allons rencontrer certains chauffeurs pour en savoir plus.
Tous les autres vont augmenter. Hein? Si ça s'est augmenté là, avec le dehors qui sont durs là, on va faire comment? Hein? On ne peut rien faire. Donc seulement on prie Dieu, c'est Dieu qui sait ce qu'il va faire. Mais sinon là c'est grave. Les gens qui vont faire le transport, les gens qui vont voyager, et tout ça, c'est autre chose. C'est devenu autre chose. Non, nous là, comme on est obligé de garer la voiture. On est obligé de garer la voiture. Marcher à pied, même à c'était la bicyclette, non?
Indice de carburant, 730 francs. Les oiseaux, 5 indices, 650. Vous voyez, c'est mieux d'acheter les oiseaux et d'acheter les échanges supérieurs à la station. Et en plus, nous, le Cameroun, on empêche vraiment les oiseaux d'entrer en Ngaoundéré, d'entrer partout. Tout ça, c'est nous mettre dans la faillite. Dans la faillite, vraiment. Nous, on est en train de souffrir, vraiment, on est en train de souffrir. Avec notre argent, on ne peut pas faire ce que nous voulons faire. L'essence là, si on ne pèse pas l'essence, les oiseaux, on doit se mettre à payer les oiseaux.
C'est admissible vraiment qu'on a augmenté le carburant et qu'on a dit que le carburant est augmenté seulement de 100 francs. Qu'on arrive au stationnement et qu'on nous dise qu'à moins de quelques kilomètres de destination, on nous parle d'un prix, la hausse du prix à 1500 francs d'ici Gangasa, qui n'atteint même pas 50 km. 1500 francs. Et d'ici jusqu'à Nomkani, on parlait de 2500. Vous voyez, je ne sais pas, on est à quel... Mais lorsque le président de la République a décrété, il y a des mesures d'accompagnement. il y a des mesures d'accompagnement. Il n'a pas dit, il n'a pas totalement dit, parce qu'il y a 5 francs qu'on augmente et qu'on doit augmenter jusqu'à 1000 francs, jusqu'à 700. C'est trop demandé aux clients. C'est trop demandé aux clients. Moi, je trouve que c'est anormal. Et lorsqu'on se plaint, ils disent qu'ils sont... Mais avant la hausse du prix du carburant, c'est seulement de 100 francs que c'est augmenté. Avant la hausse du prix du carburant, mais ils géraient comment? Ils ne faisaient pas les activités. Ils attendaient à ce qu'on augmente le carburant pour maintenant soit sur les commerçants, sur les passagers.
Il a annoncé dans son discours de fin d'année qu'on ne va pas échapper à l'augmentation des prix du carburant. Et ce n'est pas seulement au Cameroun, c'est une réalité. Le Nigeria est à côté, les prix ont augmenté aussi là-bas. C'est la situation. Donc, je ne dis pas que c'est une bonne chose, mais nous devons nous devons s'adapter. Et le chef de l'État on a annoncé des mesures pour rehausser la situation avec l'augmentation des salaires, et puis il y aura les négociations avec les partenaires sociaux dans le secteur privé. Donc, je pense que avec beaucoup de volonté, ça va aller. C'est difficile, mais ça va aller.
Et qu'est-ce que ça va pour les Camerounais lambda? Est-ce que tous les Camerounais sont des fonctionnaires?
Je ne parle, mais il y a le secteur privé. Tous les Camerounais ne sont pas des fonctionnaires, mais on a annoncé des mesures sociales aussi qui viendront. C'est pas tout de suite. Vous savez que l'État subventionne le carburant à hauteur de 800 milliards par an. Vous le savez, non? Et vous pensez que c'est normal? C'est énorme. C'est vrai, le citoyen lambda ne voit pas ça. Mais je pense que les 800 milliards que nous subventionnons le carburant par an, c'est mieux pour le citoyen lambda que l'État l'utilise autrement que de subventionner le carburant. Vous ne trouvez pas? Est-ce que toi, tu ressens qu'on subventionne le carburant? Il faut parler. Est-ce que tu le ressens? Pas du tout. Parce que depuis qu'on subventionne, est-ce que tu payes le transport moins cher? Pas du tout. Donc moi, je pense que, je ne dis pas que c'est une très bonne mesure, mais je pense que pour le moment, c'est la meilleure pour nous, pour rehausser l'économie. Ça va aller, c'est difficile.
Hey, Belmont, thank you very much for that, all the way from Adamawa region, Chief Town, Ngaoundéré precisely. Now, what are some of the things away from what the government has done that you think they should have done to maintain the prices but cut expenditure elsewhere?
I think we should look back in Cameroon and see how we can produce. Because all of these things is coming, Mr. Lee, because...
Yeah, but production takes time.
I mean, what do you mean by time? Those who are producing, it took time. What time do you need? 40 years? We have been there for 40 years. I think we were supposed to have done these things. So I think that we need to look at ourselves and produce. I gave an example of even just basic, look at cocoa. Cocoa, we don't consume, we consume finished product that is processed somewhere in Europe. Yeah, in terms of chocolate, we don't get it here, we don't produce. I mean, look at those minimal things that we should think about. Is it a way? Is it helping us? During the time of coronavirus, I said, this is an opportunity for Africa to actually show its worth. This was a time that we needed to start thinking that if today we are cut off from the world, what are we going to do? If today we do not more collaborate, maybe we have some diplomatic issues with some of these countries. Look at just the war in Ukraine, how people are suffering. Are we thinking about tomorrow? Let us look at sustainable development tomorrow. Now, I'm looking at the consequences of how this going to cause. Now, they look at the issue of counterfeit. In all sectors now, there will be counterfeit. What you cannot produce, what you cannot buy, that is coming from using from an industry that is imported, people are going to produce a photo type of it. And do you know what this is going to cost to human health? So we need to look at this. And worse still, in Cameroon, we live in what we call the free economy. Each person putting his price. And you're now going to lie behind this to put up their own prices, and we are all going to suffer. And I think we need to exercise love. And exercising love means that what? We need to be patriotic. And being patriotic doesn't just mean that you are fighting for the fatherland. When you fight for your brother and sister, you are patriotic. Now, you see, when we even talked about the issue of Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, I saw somebody selling bushmeat, and he changed the price of bushmeat. I mean, he skyrocketed. It was ×2. And then I asked myself, so you also took fuel. I mean, you also pay transport to get to the bush, to get what you are now increasing the price now. So I think we do not love ourselves. The government could look at it in another way. There are certain things that when you touch, you know they have touched the whole Cameroon. And one of those things is fuel. Because the best way to inflict pains on your people is when you touch fuel. There is nobody in Cameroon who will say that he's not going to be affected by this fuel increase. Whether you in a town setting or in a village setting, everybody is going to be touched. And I think that it was worthwhile for the government to look at it another way. There are many ways in which the government can be able to make money without necessarily asking or making the population to pay or to get through pains in order to pay for the expenditure. There are a lot of things in Cameroon. We have had, we have talked about us having to export more than we import. We can produce. I mean, we even have the agricultural products that the government could actually, you know, encourage the people to get on with agriculture. Now, but we are talking about food crisis in Cameroon. Cameroon is talking about food crisis. How does this come about? And what is this? When they were talking about the structural program, what happened is that there are a lot of things that they fragilize. They force Cameroon to privatize most of those things. And many companies went defunct. Many companies were closed down. What do you expect the people to do? And most now you see that many people now are depending on the government for whatever. People are depending on government, on toothpaste. People are depending on government, even on the least thing that you could think about. We think that the government could look at it differently. Okay. There are many other countries, yes, that have been touched. But we think that Cameroon is one of that country. We produce crude oil. And you know, crude oil is not us deciding the price. When it goes already over there, we are no more the one deciding the price. And they know what they are doing. Because they know that we do not process, they will give us any price and we are going to take.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My name is Tabi Matthias from Mamfi Town in Manu Division. I want to say that Cameroonians are not happy with the recent increase in petroleum products in the country. They should also reduce the number of checkpoints on the route as well. Good evening, Mr. Liu. To all the panelists, with all the hardship and difficulties the government are putting the country into in the face of the world, it's difficult to even identify as a Cameroonian who really join Anglophones in this mess. Okay. Karen is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu. At times, the recent increase that is actually no increase at all. The percentage increase on salary is just going to add more trouble to civil servants because all family members will run to them with their problems, forgetting that the increase is far less than the increase on basic necessities. I think the government did not reflect well before announcing such an insignificant increase. Thank you. Charlie is writing from Fundong. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The price of cooking gas in DOP is 10,000 francs and a liter of groundnut oil is 2,000 francs. Where are really going to? Only the Lord will help us. Honorine writing, good evening, Mr. Liu. With a little salaries increase, can retired people hope of something too? James in Douala, good evening, Mr. Liu. Can never help this country and are out for business, okay? Okay, IMF, okay? Archbishop Divine in mile 16. Good evening, Mr. Liu and all. Imagine each taxi driver contributing 500 francs per 5 liters of fuel. And if he has to use 15 liters per day, means each taxi driver contributes at least 2,500 francs per day. Imagine every car users contributing per day. What will the government do with all that money? That's gross exploitation of the people. Leonard is writing from Boya. They should allow us, we came, know what to do with the mentality control before. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Bafusa Magba. Bafusa Magba. Oops. It's a distance of 2,500 francs, but has about 10 control posts with road safety posts not included. With this increase, let the administration try to reduce some of these controls posts so that travelers should not suffocate. Lalap is writing there. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I watched the national station yesterday and they said that the war between Russia and Ukraine is a cause, but not so, because Cameroon doesn't have enough fuel more than European countries. I think it is the new wine in old taste, the changing of CFA bank notes. Getting things worse right now. Funge is 500 francs, but super prices is skyrocketing, and if it continues, Funge would be beyond our reach. Are you Killian writing from Mamfi, Bisong Abang to be precise? Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to the entire panelists. Minimum wage in a country like Cameroon is not enforced by private individuals or companies because the government has no strategy to fight minimum wages. So I think the government should really cut down taxes for basic commodities so that the common man can survive. Aiden Villa is writing from Halifax in Canada. Now, where do we put the common man here? Because we have clear increase in fuel prices. And then the government says minimum wage, I'm stepping it up to 41,000, and salaries for civil servants 5.2%. How does that actually help? What proportion of the population work for the government? And then those that are working for the private sector, even if you were to take the salaries from 37 to 41, what does that actually change? And the man that actually does not work.
Mr. Leo, I think that increment in minimum wage and equally the percentage increment in
the salaries for civil servants.
Yes, civil servants. A minimum wage, is a, how do I put it? Is a pacifying device, not to allow the people get irritated or enraged to enter into the street. Yes. And we pray such a thing does not happen because we're already into so much right now. The first thing we have to understand is a population of about 26 million Cameroonians, the government has the capacity to employ at most 350,000. Not even up to a tenth of the population can be employed by the government. So that minimum wage increment percentage for salary, 5.2, we are talking on 350,000 Cameroonians in the population of 26 million Cameroonians. I think a tenth of that 26 million is 2.6 million. Now, Cameroon government has the capacity to employ just 350. So that 5.2% is talking about less than a tenth of the population. So we are addressing 5.2% increase to 350,000 Cameroonians in the midst of 26 million Cameroonians. So it is very, very insignificant. Coming now to the minimum wage, increment of 5,000, because from 36,000 to 41,000 is 5,000 francs. Now, Mr. Leo, if at all somebody was earning 41,000, 36,000, and the price has increased to 41,000, and he used to pay taxi 200 francs to his place of work and 200 francs back. Now he's paying 300 to the place of work and 300 francs back. Now 600 to and fro times how many days a month? You will realize these people are not going to walk trekking. They take taxis, they take bikes to where they are going to drop. And now look at their salary increase. Now they have to eat. The people who transport food from bush farms to bring to the city, they will pay more. And the woman who is going to buy from that man who brought the food from the farm is going to buy more expensive. So the quantity of food that was sold for 500 francs will drop. So we used to say taxes are direct and indirect taxes. So whether directly or indirectly, this increment in petroleum products is affecting everybody, including the minimum wage man that has been deceived to think that the 5,000 francs added to his salary has added value to his life. It has instead increased his burdens. Number two, the remaining 25 million 650, let me give them bonus 5,000. 24,650,000 Cameroonians who are neither working in the government and who are not beneficiaries of the 5.2% increment, and you and I know the rate of unemployment in this country, and those persons are supposed to move from one place to another. Where do they get money? Because of lack of finances, increment of crimes. We're going to have more famines. We're going to have more criminals, because when the stomach does not have food to eat, the mind begins to think very dangerous things. This is a means of increasing crime wave in the society. So I think this idea they coined by 5.2% increment in salaries and 5,000 increment in minimum wage is to tell Cameroonians that we did not just throw increment of fuel price on you, we have also tried to ameliorate the situation. There is nothing ameliorated there. That should be done to people who don't know A or B or C. The challenging fact is that President Paul Biya has given the opportunity for Cameroonians to study. There is no revolution in this country during President Paul Biya's era like academic or educational revolution. This is the time where private schools have been opened. You go to every corner, every class of human being has the opportunity to go to school. We are not in a society where if your father was not rich to go to Bishop Rogan College, you cannot go to school. We have schools for 30,000, we have schools for 25,000, we have primary school for 10,000. We have primary school for 2,000 francs, that anybody have access to go to school. And the more they go to school, the more educated they become, the more enlightened they become. So this is not a time where you will throw such very trivial systems or operations and expect Cameroonians to just go to bed and sleep and think that we have grown of age and we have known these things. You can't increase salary by 5,000 and you are increasing fuel. That fuel that affects almost every part of the human life. So please, I think this minimum wage and salary increment is a deception of the millennium. Deception of the millennium.
Okay, deception of the millennium. And now we may be expecting other very drastic measures to come, because privatization may also take place.
Oh, oui.
Yes, but how are these measures effectively helping Cameroonians? You maintain that our hands are tied. We must move along the dictates of the IMF, even if we know that some of these measures that are tailored for economies may work so well for the Western economies and may not necessarily work well for African economies because of our context.
That's true, Mr. Leo. One of the things I would say is the only benefit that we can actually get from this is for us to become more creative.
Okay.
And productive. Because I think it's in the midst of situations like this that our ingenuity is supposed to be expressed, where we start thinking ways out. We use the challenge that has been thrown in front of us, then we come out with other strategies on how to live above the situation in which we find ourselves. Because one of the things that will make Cameroon or our country better than it was yesterday is if each and every one of us becomes more creative and more productive than we are right now. The situation at hand is very challenging, and if we have to talk about any economic benefit, I would say there is practically none that we are going to be getting, because the situation is to an extent actually going to rob Cameroonians of a lot that they were getting. You know, Cameroon is one of those nations which I think of recent I saw a publication that boasted that Cameroon is one of those nations, the seventh among African nations, which is actually Cameroonians are living well. In fact, they are living well. I think they said Cameroon is the seventh nation in Africa where citizens are living better. Well, just imagine, okay, with that particular kind of statistics, then this comes up, Cameroonians are going to sink. The situation is actually present. So, like I said, if we have to look at the benefits that we are going to have, no, Mr. Leo, I'm not seeing any benefits, whether it is from the direction of the fact that they said they have increased salaries of civil servants by 5.2%. That 5.2% is not compared to the 31% increase in petrol that they have increased. That is instead going to bring Cameroonians down. So if we have to talk of a benefit, like I mentioned, I'll go back to that. It is for Cameroonians to start thinking out of the box. How do we use the situation, the challenge in which we find ourselves, to become better? How are we having something that we can do to become better? Yes. You see, when the IMF measures the productivity of the wealth of a nation, it doesn't measure the wealth of a nation based on the money we have in our bank accounts or the mineral resources that we have under our soil. They actually measure the wealth of a nation based on the productivity of its people. That's why we talk of the gross domestic product. The gross domestic product, the word product actually comes from the word, the word productivity actually comes from the word product. And so if we have to look at the productivity of Cameroonians, it is that productivity that is going to change the economic situation of our country. If every Cameroonian gets to the place where we become very, very productive, meaning that we must get to the place where we empower our capacity. Every Cameroonian must start thinking on how to increase and empower their capacity, how they can become good thinkers. Because if you do not think, I want to say that if you don't think, you stink. And when you start stinking, you start sinking at the same moment. Stagnant water doesn't give good odor, or smells. So I think it is time for Cameroonians to start thinking out of the box. When we start thinking, increase our capacity, will produce and earn more than we thought we could earn, and we will overcome the burden that the government is throwing upon us. Because this is a burden that is coming from the government, and we cannot sit and fold our arms when we are actually dying. Rather than go to use destructive strategies, I think it is time for us to invest in our minds and become better, productive individuals.
Let's get the reaction from the people of Yaoundé through Marie-Rosine and Bo Elvis.
Annoncé, chose faite. Les augmentations des produits pétroliers annoncées par le président de la République du Cameroun, son Excellence Paul Biya, dans son traditionnel discours du 31 décembre 2022 sont effectives à Yaoundé. Désormais, le prix du litre du super est passé de 630 francs CFA à 720 francs CFA. Quant au prix du gasoil, on est parti de 575 francs CFA à 730 francs CFA. Le prix du litre du pétrole lampant et le gaz domestique sont restés statiques. Pour l'heure, le taxi n'a pas encore augmenté. Le prix du taxi reste jusqu'à présent à 250 francs CFA. En attendant la réunion des présidents des syndicats des transporteurs, mototaximènes et taxis avec le ministre de tutelle qui est le ministre des Transports, NS Ngale Bibehe. Pour l'heure, pas d'émeute à Yaoundé parce que usagers et taximènes, mototaximènes étaient déjà préparés à ces augmentations. Si pour le président de la République, c'est juste des réajustements.
L'État continue à prendre en charge la subvention qu'il supporte. C'est une bonne chose, puisque c'est plutôt aux riches qu'on a augmenté et les pauvres, on n'a pas augmenté, puisque le prix du gaz n'a pas changé, le prix du pétrole qu'on utilise dans les villages n'a pas changé. Donc c'est une bonne chose que le gouvernement venait de réaliser.
Pour l'heure, tout est calme. Autre augmentation du jour, c'est celui du SMIC qui est passé à 5,2%. Cette augmentation vient apaiser les cœurs des salariés, des fonctionnaires. Depuis la station de Lankak à Yaoundé, Marie-Rosine Gandouga et Serge Biwele pour My Media Prime Television.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to Yaoundé. We are somewhere around Entrée Simbok to take a look at the effectiveness in the increase of fuel prices in Cameroon through a decision that was read on the national station of Cameroon yesterday and signed by the Secretary General at the Prime Minister's office. And through our observations this morning, we can confirm that fuel prices in Cameroon have been increased, and it is effective in the petrol stations, with Cameroonians complaining about the situation, especially taxi drivers and bike riders.
No, I also feel bad for them. Because like these students, yes, I feel bad for students. People that are going to work, I don't feel bad for them, because these students, they usually pay us 100, but now if they don't pay 150, I don't think I'll carry them.
My balance was 14,000 francs because I drive diesel motor, gasoil. So now I pray that all patrons will bring down their receipt, even for 12,000 francs, because they have increased a lot. If you are consuming 20 liters of fuel, it may for 2,000 francs. We cannot mortgage with the 14,000 again. You have to drop down.
The increase of about 100 francs CFA is going to affect Cameroonians of all walks of life. It is going to affect homes, it's going to affect businesses, and it is going to affect the prices of basic commodities in the market. As part of efforts by the Cameroon government to try to see how they can contain the situation, the government decided to increase the salaries of civil servants by 5.2%. Alongside they also increased the minimum wage to about 41,000 francs CFA. Despite this increase in the salaries of civil servants and an increase in the minimum wage, many Cameroonians are still complaining because, of course, as you know, a majority of Cameroonians try to cope by working in the private sector. And if the salaries of civil servants have been increased without an increase in the salaries of those in the private sector, Cameroonians are still going to have difficulties coping in their day-to-day life. At the same time, just to indicate too that for the past 2 days, electricity supply in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, has not been stable, and this at a time when electricity supply is not stable, the government also moves ahead to increase the prices of fuel in the market at a time when electricity supply is not stable. How then is the economy going to cope? How are businesses going to raise the necessary income to be able to cope in the day-to-day running? That is a question many people have been asking. In Yaoundé, for my Media Prime Flash News, this is Bo Elvis.
Thank you very much, Bo Elvis. How should we be bracing up for what may be coming the days, weeks, months ahead?
Yes, I would like to look at the schools, educational institutions. And I want to take an example of Germany. You know that in Germany, the state employs very few people. This is one of the countries in the world where the state employee list is, is insignificant. It is rather the private sector. And the advice I will give to Cameroon now is that there is a curveball that has been thrown on us, and we should know how to handle it. Rather than building auditoriums, let us build workshops. Yes, we should build workshops. Because, yes, that is clear. We have educational promoters here. I think we need to be ready for this. There is no remedy that will come from the government to help us Cameroonians. If we are looking on the government to help us, then we are all going to die. And therefore, we must sharpen our skills, sharpen our sword, sharpen our know-how, and get to work. Meaning that what? All those who are promoting education, I would like to encourage, especially the technical education, that we should learn to be self-sufficient. We should learn to produce. We should learn technology. We should learn how to be independent. Because if we keep on depending on the government, I hear civil servants complain about all of this. I think that if we have to work for a better society, then the private sector, people should envy the private sector. And that in the 1, 2, 3 years to come, people will not envy to be civil servants. And that you will envy to be in the private sector, because we are going to handle these issues with care. We should already know that the Western world is not out to give us anything on a platter of gold. Nothing. They are not out to help us. I even heard of a story of someone, a young man in Zimbabwe who manufactured a solar system car, and he was killed.
No, he's not dead.
He's not dead, right? Thank God.
He was poisoned.
That is to show that they do not want us to progress. But then, I think that the force of darkness cannot overshadow the force of light. Am I lying, Ambe? So we have to stand up. Let us stop complaining. As we are complaining, we should be going. As we are complaining, we should be doing. Because the tendency now is that people are going to just sit down and say, okay, the government does not like us. The government do care less about us. Then we are going to sit and... No. This is rather an opportunity. I think that when issues like this come, it is an opportunity for us to look at the other direction. It's an opportunity for us to see that opportunity that has been kept for us. And I think that most inventions come out of needs. And I think that we have the needs now. The challenges that we have now, I think that we can go above the challenges and come victorious. We have to show proof of something and to say and shame the Bretton Woods Institute and shame the IMF to say that perhaps if their intention is not to let us to progress, we have to show forth that we are able to progress. And therefore, I'm tasking the educational promoters to build workshops, to leave that issue of auditorium lectures in class. Somebody said once that Cameroonians are lecturers. They like to lecture. They like to lecture. Yes, Cameroonians, I mean in the civil society, they like to sit in the offices. They just want to sit in the offices and sign papers. No, this is not the time to sit in the offices and sign papers. This is the time to go to the field. This is the time to show proof of what you are able to do. If you lecture agriculture, this is the time for you to open your own farm. If you are somebody who deals with technology, this is a time for you to be able to fabricate, to invent something for people to see. I think that this is how we are going to come out from this mess that we are finding ourselves on. If you think that, like somebody, I heard the wish of someone from Kumba saying that they wish that the government should come back to the... Let me tell you, we are going to keep on going, getting into this mess. It has started. It started already. It started with the tax on mobile money. It has been going. A lot of things have been happening. They'll keep on happening. And the best way for us to do is not to sit and complain. The best way for us to do is to get above all of these challenges and come out victorious. And tomorrow we are going to beat our chest to say that, they tried and they didn't succeed. Okay. And that we are going to be an example for Africa.
They tried and they did not succeed. Just been received a message from an organization that is working with for peace. They say that they want to engage in a project and they are in difficulty. They are seeking assistance for those who can assist them to engage in that peace project. So if you are a peace lover watching this program and you think that you can assist these guys, please call me and I will connect you to them to see how you can help out. Please, 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 please. They just wrote to me now that I should announce that anybody who can assist them to take a project of peace off in Cameroon here, they should come to me or call me so that I can link them to them. Now we are in this process. The price is already there. We may talk from now till December next year. The prices are there. The minimum wage has been increased. But how do we even how do we ensure? How do we follow up to see that the minimum price as stipulated by what has been announced is being implemented? Because we know of our sisters who are working almost everywhere, and how do we make sure that people even receive 41,000 francs as salary?
I think there is supposed to be a price control unit.
For workers?
There's supposed to be a union.
Yeah, the labor inspectors.
Inspectors to go out and do their job, because each region has regional delegates in charge of that, and they should give opportunity for those who are being paid. If they are not well paid, should bring a report, because they cannot just give a vague statement in the atmosphere and say, "Oh, we are bringing prices for minimum wage to 41,000," without giving particular positions where if somebody is not paid that amount of money, he doesn't have someone to go and submit it as a report. because I think the labor office is a place where people have to submit their challenges as far as their jobs are concerned. So I think the regional delegations, as well as the divisional delegations or the subdivisional delegations of labor, should also come out and then make it known in the public that we are located in so and so place in this region. If you have any challenge with anybody you are working under who does not pay you the money, bring the report here. And then now the forces of law and order can move to that environment and then deal with the individual in question, because we cannot just announce in the air without putting strategic measures on ground to make sure we enact it. And I think one other thing I want to challenge us again in Cameroon is that some of the increment of price like that is just to bring out the potentials in us. Because sometimes when you are caught in between the devil and the deep blue sea, you will devise means on how to come out. I think Cameroon should start producing what they consume. I will challenge us today that we don't need to produce cocoa more than we will produce cassava. We don't need to produce cocoa, because look around in Cameroon, how many persons consume the cocoa, the product of cocoa? But look around in Cameroon, almost every Cameroonian consumes cassava. So I think we should cut down those cocoa farms and start planting cassava in those places, because we need to be producing what we consume. The whites are the ones who are so much interested in this cocoa stuff, and they're the ones who use it more over there. But we produce it more and we are not consuming it the most. They who do not even consume cassava as we do, they don't produce cassava. So definitely we are producing product we are not consuming. So I think in order to curb these challenges, we should start producing the things we consume rather than producing the things we feel some people consume. Africans don't consume cocoa like the way whites consume cocoa. And Africans consume cassava more than the way whites consume cassava. And I think that it is high time we started getting people to chop down cocoa farms and start planting cassava, because we should plant what we consume, start down and planting what we sell.
Yes, minimum wage. But when the government says get minimum wages to 41,000,
yes,
how does the government also ensure that businesses make better profits to be able to pay these wages? Because you want wages to be increased.
Of course.
Yes, maybe this lady who is employing this girl and is paying 30,000 cannot make enough money to pay the rent and that and that and that. This is imposing an extra cost on the businessman.
I told you earlier here that some of these things are they are just brought up to accompany the increment in the prices.
Yes, but what are the measures that have been put in place to help the businessman?
Without any measure, first of all, put in place for the person who is, if he's not paid, it tells you that that statement was just made to pacify the tension behind the increment. That increment of minimum wage has no impact, because there are no measures put on ground first and foremost for him that is not paid, where he's going to complain. Number two, how do you promote the business of somebody to increase the minimum wage of a sales girl or a night watch or a nanny in a house? If the person is a business person that sells this business to make money to pay this individual, how do you help the person increase in sales? So those things are just, I put them, how do I put this? There's an English word that one has to just attach to this and then just discharge it. Yes.
Okay. One has to attach to this and discharge it.
Yes.
Let me take one or two messages and we call it. Hello. Greetings to you all in Prime Forum. Recent fuel price increment automatically change transport fares to change. A taxi drop will change from 250 to 300 francs. Limbe 2 will change from 6,000 to 7,260 following 21% fuel price increase. Swiru Mark writing from Limbe. I doubt what Apostle is saying. How can we say prices have increased? Does it mean school fees is steady? Proprietors have also augmented school fees. It's not easy. All I want to believe in that saying, that education is not for the poor. Tambe Ayuk is writing from Douala. I don't know where that's coming from. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm more for Gabriel from Bafusam. Increment in prices is one of the measures used by the Europeans imperialists in connivance with the United States of America and their agents who have dual nationalities in order to reduce the population directly or indirectly, accelerate brain drain, and finally recolonize Cameroon. Good evening, sir. Are we saying that due to increase of fuel taxes, driver and bike riders should not carry or someone paying distance drop for 100 francs. Okay, Bayer Elvis writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. If the Cameroon government wants to kill us, then they should come out plainly and tell us it is even better. They should better sell off the country to share the money to all us citizens. Okay, Cliff is writing from Boya. Mr. Liu, Cameroon government suffering from. Good evening, Mr. Liu. There are some people in Cameroon who earn 25,000 francs, the increase of basic salary. Some employers would not follow them. So what is the government going to do to ensure the salary is paid to those people? Okay, we are going to be ending at this juncture. Prof. Mark Anthony, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. And thank you to Cameroonians who have been listening to us. And I want to wish a blessed evening to my family members, especially to my aunt who is presently watching at me from Bamenda.
Okay, thank you too for coming.
Doris.
Doctor, thank you for coming.
Thanks so much, Mr. Leo, and I pray personally that Cameroonians should be courageous. You should not get discouraged, and even the darkest part of the night, it is darkest because dawn is at hand. And I think that we need to strive to live up to that expectation. We should stay calm. We should look forward positively. And I think that we should have good thoughts about Cameroon.
Thank you for coming, Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. He that has seen 99 is not afraid of 100.
Okay. We want to thank you all who took time off to watch this edition of the program. If you missed it, take another rendezvous for a rebroadcast tomorrow 1 p.m. on My Media Prime TV. Thank you for production, Eli and Desmond. Tabi Tambe Brian for supervision. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.